the modern world is very fast, and people feel the time and the pressure of just their daily lives. It's hard to find balance in those lives, and it's a blessing to be able to remove oneself somewhat from that hustle and bustle out there, and to be in a place where there's a lot of nature and things that historically people were very connected to. I mean, there still are people connected to these things, but they're increasingly diminishing in terms of just numbers on the earth. The major cities that are emerging all over the world they're terrifying in that so many people that traditionally were living off the land and connected to the natural cycles have moved in, and we have massive slums all over the world for people that have traveled and seen some of these places. We've got about 1/4 of the Earth's population now living in really slum conditions, which was very, very different. Modern poverty is not like pre-modern poverty, because pre-modern poverty was rarely qualified with impoverishment of the soul. If any of you have been to Pakistan, a lot of you are, unfortunately, some of the really young people don't realize how much has changed just in the last 20, 30 years. Swat Valley was one of the most beautiful places in the world, and I know people that became Muslim because they visited Swat Valley. So, and the stories about just the incredible hospitality and the beauty of the people of the Swat Valley. So when you read now about what's happening in places like that, it's very disturbing. When I first went to West Africa, it was actually my second time. My first time was in 1978. But the second time that I went, Mauritania was an isolated place that had a lot of people there didn't even know about America, just that there was a country called America. I actually met people in the Saharan desert that did not know America as a place. So it was very amazing to see people that weren't just pre-modern people, but they were pre-modern people that had almost no interaction with the modern world. So you got a very different perspective on just how people viewed things. And now in Mauritania recently, there was a tourist that was killed, and even though it was very shocking for the people generally, that the fact that there were some Muslim extremists that did something like that in Mauritania was like very shocking for the Mauritanians, because that type of Islam, or that manifestation of Muslim behavior, not that type of Islam, that manifestation of Muslim behavior was really unknown in that place. So it was a big shock. So things have changed, but it's very nice for us and to be able to come out here. And so I think we should do our best to take advantage of. Imam Zayd and I took a walk, and there's a place called the Baptist Vacation Bible School, and right down the road. But that was I like the name, Vacation Bible School, because vacation is from a Latin word to empty out. Vacuum comes from the same root. So vacating is emptying out, and the Salaf called it takhliya. There's a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said that the Prophet emptied us out of Jahiliyyah, and then he filled us of Islam. So this spiritual practice is about emptying before it's about, you have to be emptied before you can be filled. If you're already filled, in fact, most of us are full of ourselves. So that's the problem, is how do we empty our souls of ourselves, emptying the soul of the self. And that's a very difficult thing. But what's interesting is the Prophet ﷺ was, when Jibreel first met him on Jabal Nur, the mountain of light, he squeezed him, And some of the ulama took from that the ishara, he squeezed him 3 times. And it was actually to make sure that he was completely empty of himself before giving him the revelation. And that's why he thought that he was going to kill him, because he literally crushed his just sides. But that was a physical manifestation of a spiritual reality, because the Prophet ﷺ, in the books they always say, كَانَ يَتَحَنَّثُ, يَتَحَنَّث. And in the commentaries always say, التَحَنُّث هُوَ تَعَبُّد. The tahannuth is a type of devotional practice. So the practice that the Prophet ﷺ was doing, the meditation that he was doing in the Ghar, Hira, there on Jabal Nur, was called tahannuth. Now we just read in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, what verse had that word in it? Anybody who is? Al-Hinth al-Azim, right? So the hinth is in Surah Al-Waqi'ah. What does it mean in there? Al-hinth. Anybody? Luckily you're doing Surah Al-Waqi'ah with Sheikh Yahya. So you'll know what hinth. Hinth is shirk. So tahannuth is in the morphology of Arabic, tahannuth, one of the meanings of the tafa'ul wazn is called tafa'ul, the paradigm of tafa'ul. One of the meanings is to avoid. So you have like hujud is sleep. Tahajjud is to avoid sleep. So yatahajjad means you're struggling to avoid sleep. Tahannuth means to avoid shirk, to remove oneself from shirk. Now the greatest shirk is worship of the self. Idolatry has nothing on self-olatry, right? Really, because the worship of the self, and Allah mentions about people that take their hawa as their God, right? Ittakhadha ilahuhu hawahu, like he took as his God his desires, his self, whatever the self wants, the dictates of the self. So the emptying out of the self is necessary in order to prepare for your journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though it's part of the journey, because the journey, you have to pack before you go on a journey, right? You get your provisions ready. So the journey actually starts before you set out on the physical journey of actually moving towards your destination. There's things you have to do. So you have to get your visa if you need a visa. You have to get your tickets. You have to do all these things. So the emptying out is really the preparation to really move spiritually on the path. And that's why the Isra is such an interesting event in the Prophet ﷺ's life.